Why would I go to Ducati of blank versus Ducati of blank when they look and feel the same, which is to say they don't really feel like anything. There's no
Yeah.
nothing grabs at me. But when you walk into something like Monroe Motors or Scuderia or what I'm trying to build with Studio Moto, I want it to evoke something. And it's going to be different walking into Scuderia versus Studio Moto, and it's going to be different walking in either of those to Erico or to, you name it. Like pick a cool shop. They're
Yeah.
fucking cool. They're doing great business, but it tugs at you in a way. And
Yeah.
you can't take that away.
So wait, what? Why do you have so many beans?
The little beans.
Beans. Oh, okay.
22 grams
Okay. We
beans
are
is too few
talking. We
beans.
are
It's
specifically
too
talking
little
about coffee.
beans.
I guess I should have.
No, yeah, I meant more like a frijoles pour over, which I'm not sure if you've
25
ever, but
damn good cup of coffee.
it will. It will get you a damn good morning wake up. They're a little cold and slimy
Get 'em
right
up,
out of the can, but if you grind them up
just
and
slowly
you pour
pour
hot
that.
water
But you
over
got to
them
have
just
that
the right
nice little
amount.
gooseneck, and you got to just slowly warm up those refried beans.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Targeted targeted pouring for beans is next time I see you, I am straight gonna do that as a surprise. I am gonna measure everything out and I'm grinding up just canned beans, whole beans. I'm gonna grind them and then
Can't
slop
wait
I
for
that
guess
in
I
that.
a
forget the
old
fact that I am. I
Chemex.
wasn't even
Yeah,
thinking
no, it's more
coffee
of a
right now because I am not only 2 hours ahead of you, but also have children, and so it does mean that I'm up very early, and I've already had like
Oh,
a whole day already happened for me.
more than wakes you up.
interesting. That sounds nice. I barely made it onto this meeting and it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, and I was like, I had to set an alarm. You know what? What is it? Daniel, what is it? What is it?
You should have a
Childless. That's what
kid.
it is. It's
That'll
super,
like I
super
think
fun.
that's the next move for you, Justin.
People have been saying that I do need a dog, and no,
Stay light on your feet.
dude, I'm mobile, bro. You gotta stay mobile. That's it. You gotta stay light on your feet. So listen. So this is funny, actually. Uh, Actually, it's probably not. Whenever you have to preface anything that way, there was somebody left a stroller outside of the
Was it
dealership
empty?
for like 9 hours, and we were like watching it all day. Yeah, and but it was like sitting out in front of a closed restaurant. It wasn't 9 hours also because we don't work that long, but it was out there for long enough where I was like started looking for said stroller owner. Nobody was around, and I was like, listen, this is an expensive stroller, leather wrapped handle, the whole nine, and we decided to turn it into lost and found at our building, mostly because it was mostly in front of our service department, and we were worried that it looked like we had abducted a child. So I went and got the stroller, like Pink Panther, and I like snuck over there and like did one of these because it was the scariest moment of my life because it was like, yeah, me pushing empty stroller, police officers immediately, right? Like I'd call the police on me. And so I like hustled it in inside and then I pushed it across the showroom and back to the service department and just got at the back door, heard Kennedy go, Justin. And I turned around and he had his phone out. And so now he's sharing in the group text a picture of me
I love
pushing
that.
a stroller around, which he thinks is hilarious. So the best part of it is the security guards across the hall, like big open common space, and we know them obviously, and we made eye contact. And I had told her earlier about the stroller, but she hadn't done anything about it. So I got like there's like people everywhere. I got like 20 paces out of the door. We make eye contact, and I just ghost rode it across the whole common space. And like people who were eating their baguettes and stuff like freaked out because the stroller went like all the way across the thing. And then she got up and ran and caught it,
How
and
many
she was
people
really
just
upset
eat a
with me. I was like,
baguette right by your dealership? Just a whole baguette?
I think
That
that might have been the wrong word too. Listen, hang on a sec. Let me show you something really quick. See, if you're familiar with the podcast, you're familiar with this. Ready?
I'm familiar with the podcast. Been on every
So,
episode. No idea what you're talking about.
yeah, it's a croissant,
Oh, empty. It's empty.
my coffee cup. I have like the same coffee cup. I'm like, no, yeah,
Sure, I'm having
Jesus,
my
I'm the
caffeine
one who
mints.
hasn't
I'm
had
doing pretty
coffee.
good with those,
What's
though.
going
All
on?
right. Hey, so let's do this thing. Let's do the damn thing. Daniel
Yes.
Willoughby, you are joining us on the Dealer Lab today, and it is nice to see you, sir. I'm excited.
So glad to see you guys. I'm excited too. I love talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a really good time. All right, so I didn't send any agendas of what we're going to cover or talk about. It should be pretty easy because you're doing some really cool stuff. But I think the first thing I wanted to start off with was just history in the industry. Like if we could just start off with what experiences did you have? What stores did you work in? What'd you do? I know you eventually ended up running sales with CMW and kind of scaling that up, and now you're doing some really exciting like future industry stuff. I feel. I mean, granted, it is small scale right now, and so the conversation that I'd love to move that into is how do you actually scale what you're doing now into something bigger? So,
Yeah, I
um,
love that.
yeah, take it
I'll
away, man. What?
preface this I'll preface this with I'm having the most fun that I've ever had professionally and personally right now.
That's
It's
awesome.
been the whole duration of my career and personal development, up until this point, to be able to know all the things that I know how to do because I can't imagine starting one of these things and not having had the background that I did personally, because
Yeah.
there's too many things to know. There's just it's wild, and there's ins and outs that I think are important that and there's ins and outs that I think you could probably do without that. I think historically we've thought, all right, well um, these are the key ingredients you need to know to run a dealership, and I think some of that stuff's gone with the wind, but some of it are core principles that you need to hang on to. So
Dude.
way back when I started working at Monroe Motors, I had moved to Santa Cruz, sunny California, Santa Cruz from Seattle. And I didn't know what Santa Cruz was. I didn't realize it was a small college town. In my head, it was Los Angeles. I just heard uh, California sunshine. And so I sold everything. I had a 2002 R6 and about, I don't know, $100 worth of clothes to my name. And I sold all of it and I moved to Santa Cruz. Uh, wasn't the dreamland I thought it was going to be. And so within a couple months, I'd hitched a ride up to San Francisco, and I saw San Francisco for the very first time. And I'd gotten to the SF airport, and I took the BART from the airport into the Mission, and taking the BART in, and I come up and out. The BART train's just getting more and more packed with what I just thought were, traditional San Francisco people, which for sure it is. But what I didn't know was that it was Pride, and I came up and out of the BART station into San Francisco during Pride, and it was the most awesome, chaotic thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I thought, oh my God, this is where I need to be. So I got up on Craigslist the next day, and I was like, okay, who's hiring? What's going on? And there was an ad for a service writer at Monroe Motors. And
Mhm.
I looked at Monroe Motors website. I was like, man, this is really cool. I mean, to me, it was like so foreign. It was Audi and Triumph and MV Agusta and all these bikes that, I didn't really have a taste for yet at the time. And I'm really glad that that's where I started because I came into the industry, I think two things. One, with a really broad palette for motorcycles.
Yeah.
And, secondarily, they're a strong shop. They are an old school shop that at the
Mhm.
time was selling a large number of bikes in a really fun way. And it was just this awesome hodgepodge of energy and motorcycles in this really sort of punk rock way in down, thick in San Francisco.
Yeah. What year was this? When did this happen?
This is 2011 to 12. So this is kind of
Nice.
like in that window of 11, 12. I can't, might have been early 12. And so I had seen this ad for Surface Rider. I didn't know what service riding was. I barely knew mechanics. I grew up in Seattle in apartments. I'm handy and crafty, but the most spinning wrenches I'd ever done was like taking a wheel off the trucks of my skateboard, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the exposure to mechanics and engines and that kind of stuff. And so, man, I poured into uh, an overnight of like, give me all the details on what I need to know to be a service writer. Give me the ins and outs of mechanics and all this stuff. I was deep down YouTube rabbit holes. And in 2012, there were some weird ones. But, I poured into myself as much info as I could in one night. And then the next day, I wrote this really long cover letter that explained I'd been riding motorcycles since I was 3. I love bikes. Like, I would love to just be a part of this and what you guys have going on. San Francisco seems so cool. I want to be a part of this community. And I'd sent this picture along with this letter of me at 3 years old on this plastic toy ninja looking thing that I had. I had this Kawasaki Ninja replica I would race down the hills of Seattle Center on. And so I sent them this picture and this cover letter and this resume that had a whole lot to do about working at a pizzeria. And I was just like, let's see what'll happen.
Yeah.
And I got interviewed by then Samson and Dave, 2 good friends of mine to this day who'd been in the industry for a long time. And they basically hired me on the spot. And I didn't know, again, still really what I was going in for. They said, "Are you good with being a service rider? You know, this seemed like a good fit to you." And I was like, "Sounds awesome."
Honestly,
I
dude,
knew
if
nothing.
I ever got a resume that had that much thought and attention and like a photo in it, I'd be like, yeah, you of course you did work here. Like
It
that's
was
Yeah, and like we both
no.
know Samson. Samson did the same thing. From the
Yeah,
get-go.
knowing
He
him
was
now.
just like, oh God, yeah, this kid's got to work
So
here.
I that was my foot in the
Yeah, right.
door. And then uh, tragedy struck early. So within the first month of me working there, Dave had already had planned a, I think, 3-week vacation. Okay. So already it was going to be just me and the other service rider. And it was like busy time. Okay. No problem. Uh,
Dave was the service manager. Just putting that.
Dave was the service manager, and Dan, who had some ties to Scuderia, he may have worked there at some point. I'm forgetting his last name. Really nice guy, but Dan had gotten in a motorcycle accident and died within
Holy
my
shit,
first month of working there, and it
man.
coincided with Dave leaving for this trip to, I believe, Europe. That was all non-refundable 3-week deal. So I got left running the service counter in this really heavy position and time uh, for about 3 weeks trial by fire while Dave was gone and the shop was in this really heavy time. And I think in that period, I learned more then than I could
Yeah.
have in any year.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the dynamics of technicians, the dynamics of customers, positive, negative. You know, I mean, it was by nature of what was happening a very, very tense time, and I just got to experience all these different things at their peak. It was tough, and when that came to a close and Dave came back, uh, I made it through that trial by fire, and it was kind of off for both of us, and so we had a really fun kind of year together, and then way back then San Francisco was expensive and I couldn't piece it together to where it made sense for me where I could have any semblance of quality of life and motorcycling and keep doing what I was doing. And so I had made the really tough choice to go back to Seattle. And uh, I got put in touch with Garrett, who was running the then rebranded Triumph of Seattle. It had been Linwood Cycle Barn,
Uh-huh.
and after the recession, he made some really big moves and had cut Honda, he'd cut Kawasaki, and he'd really pared this thing down into Vespa and a handful of scooters and really focused on this kind of niche market in this not niche part of um, the greater Seattle area. And it was kind of this odd move. And he was doing some really cool things with it. And I had gotten paired with him from Samson. They were good buddies from 20 groups. And he said, "Hey, I got this kid that's looking to move back to Seattle. He's a great service rider, and see what you can do." And so I basically moved back with this opportunity to be a service rider. And within my first couple of days working as service rider there, um, not the fault of Garrett, just sort of these remnants of the way things were at that time. There was still a lot of staff changeover and things that were kind of trickle over from the old school way. There were some service writers there that weren't doing too great of a job. One of them, she would hide under the desk on Facebook. She'd be on Facebook on her phone and not helping customers. And to me,
She
customer
was
service is like number
literally
one.
hiding under the desk, like not that's not a turn of phrase. Like she was under the desk on Facebook.
Full under the desk on Facebook on her phone scrolling. And it's like to to go from this awesome, phenomenal, community oriented punk rock feeling, but with high end European bike. I mean, the coolest store to me in my eyes I could have ever been a part of,
Yeah.
to basement fluorescent lights hiding from the thing that we're supposed to love doing on fate. Like, it was so gross to me. So I put in my 2 weeks, and the day before end of my I'm out of here, Garrett says, if you stick around, I'll make you service manager.
Yeah, like that's a tempting offer there.
And at early 20s, a salary of too little money in retrospect, that I was all wide-eyed. I was like, oh,
Mr.
salary
Manager?
manager.
Yeah.
And
Did you
I
just say manager? And he's like, and I gotta fire whoever I
Yeah, I
want.
said
but it
that's
was
the fun thing to
another
do.
it was another bout of trial by fire, because here are all these seasoned technicians, and here's this dumb kid who's coming in that really wanted to make this thing. I saw that there was this opportunity, and I wanted to make this thing out of it. I wanted to take
Yeah.
the flavor of what I'd experienced in San Francisco and bring that to this little thing that was going on up in Linwood. And little did I know the opportunity would get even bigger, because a year later we would move down into Seattle. And that's where Triumph of Seattle, over the course of into about 2020, 3 times hit number one dealer, hit first time ever awarded top customer satisfaction.
Nice.
We hit uh, twin ton multiple times. Like, it was just a really, really fun time to be a part of a growing dealer, but definitely a Triumph dealer.
Yeah.
And so, small important note, way back in 2012, there was this parts girl that was working there at Monroe Motors, and the boyfriend of this parts girl that was working there during that time had come out, and I remember vividly meeting a one Justin Watson. It was brief and it was a quick handshake, but recognizable character. And so fast forward to 2 or 3, when Greg McCord and Justin come in to take a look at adding Triumph of Seattle to the portfolio. They came in kind of slick, didn't want to introduce that they were who they were and what they were doing. And all of a sudden, I lock onto this guy and I say, I've met you before. And
Bro, it was pretty wild, dude. Like I remember faces in a way that is like, I feel like I've seen that guy before. Daniel remembered my name. He was like, your name, you're Justin, right? And I was
Run,
like, oh crap, cover blown.
run,
Like
run.
it was wild, dude.
Oh
Yes,
my
funny.
yeah.
God.
But
Very many
so
years later.
so Triumph of Seattle had become a part of the McCord Group, which became CMW, that Justin had established. And when CMW was growing into what it was, again, I had this kind of wide eye. Okay, what's this? This is something new. This is novel. This looks fun, and I really wanted to be a part of it. And so I had stuck my neck out a couple of times, and really just I wasn't really sure what the end goal of it was, and if there was even room for what could I do. But I was just so curious, and so that sort of curiosity and trying to do something kept putting me in proximity to Justin doing really fun things. And so the really abbreviated version is Justin put together this great group of people that I am really privileged to have been a part of. And that's where I met you too, Max. Like, this has just been such a fun opportunity to meet and work with great people. um, but I worked as I don't remember what the title was with CMW, National Sales Director. And then with
Director of
the
National
team that
Sales
he put
Director.
together with Motos America, same sort of title, but adding in customer experience, because to me, the customer experience is the key point of good sales, whether it's sales and service or sales as far as bike goes. I think that customer experience thing is the most important. And so anyway, I got to be a part of some really fun things there, and that's kind of the trajectory. I had ran Triumph of Seattle for a stint as GM and a couple other shops, and um, but it was all all these things kind of through osmosis of just kind of always sticking my neck out and going, okay, this looks kind of fun. What's going on here? How can I
Yeah.
how can I be a part?
And it's more than it has been in the history of me knowing him, at least more than sticking your neck out, as much as it is completing tasks that are assigned with vigor and then adding to them, right? So not only the basics, but you do stuff and you're excited about it. Like you bring creativity to a very boring task of like, hey, this could be so much cooler if we did this, which is you get that from a lot of staff. This would be really cool if we did this, but
Yeah.
they tell you that before the task is completed. So you're like, yeah, it would be really cool if we could do that, but first we have to do the thing that we were supposed to do. And that's one thing Daniel would always finish that first and then come up with other stuff. To speak about customer experience a little bit, because it became so heavily towards the crescendo of the big group, because we all really believe that's just the most important thing. Greg and I, when we got TOS, it was our, oh my God,
I think fifth and sixth
sixth
because
store.
Cycle Barn
It
came
was our
in kind of at the same.
sixth store that we had added. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. So it was at the end. It wasn't the last one, but it was the last acquisition before we built the last one out. But and so we've been through it a bunch. I mean, we went through it with Moto Julia, we went through it with a lot of different Rock Ridge, some other different things. But we walked into that store and Greg and I did our little thing. We got called out right away, which is good. We were not really subtle, to be honest. You know, I'm pretty sure Greg was wearing a Dolce & Gabbana tracksuit and like had Heelys on or something. But we walked around. We talked to Garrett and we talked to Daniel. And I had this notebook, man. I had this notebook that was like filled with questions and numbers, and I was so up in my head about like the structure, that could we afford it, all the things, right? Because that's what I was doing at the time. And I kind of had like a little mini panic attack because it's such an experience to go into that store with the it's just so good. They did such a Gary they did such a good job with the culture of that store. And really what ended up happening later, like the thing that was missing was the math of the store, right? But the show was
Really?
the best show in the country. I'm not going to say best dealership in the country because I'm biased, but at from what I had seen, it was the best show. The people at the counter, all these punk rock kids who were super engaged, really excited about what
That's
they were doing,
cool.
talking to us, didn't know who we
The
were.
right
They didn't
team.
know what was going on, and they were just excited to be there. The coffee shop, the Wick was, you know, and all the albums on the wall. Dude, it was so right. It was so right. So I'm standing with my notebook, and it's just overwhelming. And Greg kind of can tell, and he's like, "Hey, man, let's go grab a coffee." And we get in the car, and I'm flipping through the thing, and he goes, don't worry about any of that. And I was like, but like we don't know how much the electricity costs. And we pulled up to Herkimer, which long story, good friend of both of ours through different channels. Incredible. One of the best. If you're in Seattle, go to Herkimer. It's the best coffee in maybe the country. And pulled up and we're sitting in the car and he throws it in park and he goes, we're gonna buy that store. And I was like, oh. And he goes, yeah, that's the one. And he never ever looked at any numbers, dude. Like, of course, he's a wild man and he doesn't always look at numbers, but he didn't care. He didn't care what the numbers look like. He needed the store to be part of the story. And it's 100% because of those guys. Like they were given the license to be able to build what was the coolest thing, and they did. And it was such an important part of what we do now because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to make the math match the experience, right? The math was always primary to me, and it shows you how important the experience
Yeah.
is because you can math yourself right out of business. You know, they're an emotional purchase. They're an exciting thing to get involved with. They are a small club of people who can weigh out the danger versus the whatever, the excitement, the love, the aesthetic, whatever they're looking for. And if you can't acknowledge that and give them a show
Yeah.
worth the danger, then you're missing the point, right? Because
I mean,
math is for
Okay.
Washington
to your
which
point of
also
like you
works. But
can math yourself out of business, you can also experience yourself out of business, and that's nearly what had happened. It was this constant growth,
fair.
and it was
No, no, fair.
my buddy Tyson, who started Redmond Used Motorcycles, and who is was very, very helpful and impactful to me getting what I've got going now up and running. you know, he way back had worked at the Ducati dealership in town, and he'd come to our parties and events, and he's a great member of the community, and he was always participating. And he's like, man, every time I was there and around you guys, it's like everybody operated as if they were the general manager,
Oh,
the
that's
the
great.
service writer, the marketing manager, the parts person, whoever. I mean, everybody just had that level of ownership, and it's greatly attributed to Garrett's leadership. I mean, he was an amazing team builder and leader, hired incredibly well, and was just a great driving force of a community and doing things differently. Um, throughout all of this, but especially my time with Triumph Seattle, that's when I found my love for small business. Garrett was so
Yeah.
small business oriented.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, in that same sort of kind of punk rock ethos of like, no, we're going to do this our way. We're going to do this how we want, differently. And, applying that formula to a large dealership, none of us saw this thing that was a number one dealer in North America for the fastest growing brand at the time. None of us saw it as this big dealership. It was our small bike shop. And
Yeah.
that was so formative to me, and it was so fun to be a part of. And I really, again, I hold on to that really tightly because that was like my love for small business that I found there. But
Yep.
then in come Justin and Greg, and what I had never been exposed to was the number side of how tightly things were analyzed through 20 groups. I knew a lot of the 20 group guys,
Mhm.
Johnny and some of the big characters, but I didn't know how analytical you could take this thing. And so it
Yeah.
was really eye-opening and exciting for me also because Justin was a big compliment to me. I think we're in a lot of ways with business, two sides of the same coin, and we come at things very differently. And that's always been so fun to work together on
Yeah.
because we're constantly and never in a combative or friction way, but we're always coming at things from a really different angle, and we're both kind of like, oh, I never saw this that way. Oh, I
Yeah.
never
That's
saw that
awesome.
that way.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about doing these talks and the groups and Onyx and the 20 groups that we were in and everything is that you put people together who are solving a common problem that are very, very different. Because like it's funny in this conversation from the show to the analytics, us three are in order
Hilarious.
echelons different from each other, right? Because I feel the same way you, yeah, I feel the same way you feel, but about Max as well,
Sure.
Yeah.
because like for Max, I'm the show guy, right? And so like I talk about show and experience all the time, and I get so much of my analytic stuff from him because I
Yeah.
enjoy it, but I'm not naturally good at
Yeah.
that. And so like I'm like this weird in the middle step, and that's saying you're not good at analytics, which you are. You understand
Yeah.
business heavily, but you go to experience first. I and Max goes to analytics first, and
I
so
mean,
and it is,
it's
but it's
all
all
it all has to be
moving
the
in the
center,
same
to be
direction,
honest.
moving for the same
It
goal.
Which
does.
kind of implies that Justin is the ultimate here, but maybe that's true. No, but
Well, I
no,
That's what
remember
I was.
Max the first time
That's
he
what I was
showed
getting at.
me. Well, seeing the
Anyway,
Onyx
I'm
demo
gonna let
for
you
the
guys
first
finish.
time, Max. I mean, like, talk about
yeah,
like full culmination of Onyx and show in a package that somebody can tangibly do something with, like can
yeah,
actually take action with, because just analytics doesn't give you action, and just show doesn't give you action. But
yeah,
when I saw the package of what Onyx, and I remember the time clock life cycle, and
yep,
just all these things that were, you could literally almost grab the data and go, I want to do something with this. Uh,
yeah.
that was so exciting to see.
Yeah. It's funny. We were last podcast, me, Justin, and Danny were talking about, not you, Danny, our other partner, Danny. We were talking about inventory management. And it's funny because we actually like in the podcast had like come up with these like different strategies, and the conversation was extremely similar. I had been talking about, and Daniel, I don't know if I showed you this already, but like we had built this inventory management tool that automatically reprices product over time to ensure that the product doesn't sit for a certain amount of time on the showroom floor. And so like we built this whole thing and deployed it and it was working. It's moving a lot of bikes, but it's doing it in this like very rigid way. This like very analytical, rigid way. And then in the podcast, Justin's like, well, there's still like the emotion. There is going to be a time when that bike's on the floor, and there's got to be some time of like selling the show and the excitement and the story that goes along with it. And so like that conversation, the same thing that you're talking about, working with Justin, of like coming at the problem from one angle and he comes from the problem at another angle, and you end up with this new like, oh, that's the actual way to do it. I think that's the most fun part. Is you're right. We're all not only coming at these from slightly different perspectives, but we see the vision, because I completely agree that experience is the only way we're going to keep customers coming back and keep the industry growing and get it back to the fun punk rock versions of what it was, before this wild roller coaster through COVID. But like when you are doing your own thing right now, and Justin's running his own thing, he's running Scuderia, and I'm running with Danny and John, we're running the dealer lab, and like, now we've got all these guys who are around the country who have a tremendous amount of experience and are going, let's do it different. Like, okay, if we were going to like punk rock, just like build the thing that we want to, and then have the ability to apply the math to it at the same time, like what would that look like? And so I want to use that as a little launch pad into what you have. You've seen the stores from small operational thing. Like I'm not calling Monroe Motors small, because that's a hell of an operation. But you've seen that where it was a tight enough group that culture like seeped out of it, right? And then Triumph Seattle, still small enough group where culture, like each individual employee has so much personal responsibility for the culture that they feel each like owners. And then you saw, as things started to grow more and more, like, and this is my impression, so I'm not putting this on you, but like as things start to grow, and I'll say dealerships start to grow from my point of view, it could be dealer groups start to get bigger. It becomes harder and harder to bottle that. It's like the volume of culture is still the same, but the like container that you hold it in has grown. So the pressure is different. Like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. My store, I feel like, is the same way. We like, when it was my little family dealership, it was easy to make sure that the culture just exuded out of every single pore of this place. But as soon as it became more brands and became a bigger group, and then a bigger group again, and all this stuff, like it felt to me, and there could be a lot of moving pieces, but it felt to me like the passion started to go away within the store. And that came from maybe from management and leadership, but it ultimately went down to like the staff being at work and hiding under their desk on Facebook. like, so that it's a long way to say, what's that?
I mean, to be fair, that was that was still small culture when that was happening.
Maybe it just
But
didn't
yes,
have that same
you're
volume
right.
of pressure.
So,
Yeah.
that was maybe just not. Yeah, there were some problems where you just weren't paying attention to some things.
Yeah.
Were just like, you have a job. That is
So,
but no, you're
so
right. You're right.
You then decided to do your own thing. And so please walk me through like that idea and like what you're building right now.
So it happened really organically, and I don't think I could have done it. I think everything just happened the way that it was supposed to happen. I couldn't have I don't think I could have planned for it to happen the way that it did. I mean, you could have in retrospect, but at the time it seemed really, how am I going to start a dealership? Because to me, and I think it's important that we had sort of gone over my background a little bit, because I've got buddies with great independent shops. A good buddy of mine, George, owns Scarab Works, this small independent, really cool European focused repair shop. And my other buddy Tyson has Redmond used motorcycles. I was his second sale ever. I really wanted to be his first. When I found him on Marketplace, I'd seen him listing on OfferUp. I'm like, dude, is this you? Are you selling bikes now? And he goes, yeah, I started this dealership. And it was, I mean, to me, I was like, man, I want to support. So I bought a bike full retail from him when I was still working at Triumph of Seattle, swiped it on a credit card because I wanted to support what he was doing.
That's
And
rad.
it was cool to see him start this small little thing, but he's just sales. And it's not to take away from what he's doing. He's doing a great thing and he's doing what he wants. Same with George and doing service. But to me, a shop is all of those pieces because from my
Yes,
background, coming from,
it's the life cycle piece, right? It's the all inclusive
yeah,
within my like I'm running this culture. I'm like building this community. Yeah.
yes. And the facets of small business, the variety of the things you do, I can't touch on that enough. They're all important to me and they all make me feel complete and like who I am. I like service writing. I like wrenching on bikes. I like selling a bike. I like merchandising a showroom. I like working with customers. I like doing the paperwork and the DMV. I like all of it. And
You are a
I
crazy
do. It's
person.
weird to, I know. All of it, all of it. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
when I left the industry at a really heavy time for myself personally. I had lost my dad. I had lost. I had moved back from California to Seattle, where a lot of my really good friends were. I felt isolated in a lot of these ways. There was just a lot going on for me personally, and the work that I was doing as director of sales and customer experience should have been really good. I was making good money. I had good opportunity. I could travel. I could do all these things, but it was really not fulfilling. And it was not fulfilling for a couple of reasons. And the number one reason was that sort of you can lead a horse to water situation where I had this opportunity to work with all these different people across the US at these really great dealerships. And there was sort of this sense of, okay, cool. I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to keep doing this my way. And the impact of what I've firsthand experienced and done and know works and trying to educate and build this culture at a really big level, like you said, that sort of containment, right? It's the same thing, but it just doesn't land the same. And
Yeah.
it was really hard for me. It was hard for me because the thing that I know so true in myself, like this is gonna sell more bikes because this is real and fun. Uh,
Mhm.
you can't at such a big container, you can't have the same feeling, and so that was really difficult. And then the other piece of it was that what I was doing wasn't motorcycles anymore. It wasn't walking into a shop that smells like tires on a hot day or gasoline and oil. And we
Yeah.
know those smells. You know that when you walk into a bike shop, that wasn't that. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can do one or the other. I can do the passion and the community and the better sales and better customer experience, or I can do just the being in a bike shop. But when neither of those things were really hitting, I said I'm going to go try something else. And trying something else at such a heavy point in my life wasn't very easy either. And what I was trying just wasn't very fun. I tried a couple of things, namely real estate. It's kind of one of those things I think any sales guy at some point in their life kind of goes, can I sell houses? Those are big ticket. Um, Not fun, very brutal. Not motorcycles. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of really great realtors. And again, there's a lot of things in that world that check off the boxes for me. The paperwork, the working with customers, the driving. I got to drive my Golf R around. That's fun. I mean, there's highlights to all this stuff. Oh, no schedule. I can wake up whenever. But it just it just wasn't it. And I missed and was grieving in a big way the things you do in a bike dealership, the variety of things you do in a bike dealership, working on bikes, working with customers, selling a bike, service riding, selling parts. I love that. That is a
Yeah.
mix that you get in a bike dealership. And it's the same thing you get in a car dealership, but there isn't the same pressure and culture and excitement. And so
Passion. Yep. Yep.
right. So all those things were so important to me. And I'm thinking at this point in my life, like, oh my God, I'm never going to have that again because that mix was so important to me. I had this opportunity to try and pull together investment money and buy this dealership. There was an opportunity to have a dealership, and I thought this is my way back into this.
Yeah.
And um, we had sort of struck a deal. I had gone out and put together this pitch deck and was finding investors and I had this business plan and I was ready and it seemed like this was
Damn,
going
dude.
in this direction.
Yeah.
And again, it's this whole new stick my neck out. Okay, what's going on? Can I do this? And I got really close to the finish line. And at the 11th hour, it fell apart. And it was really heartbreaking because, again, I had this renewed excitement of these are the things that I like and want to do. And I want all these ingredients in what I'm doing.
Yeah, you had a vision for the thing you were going to build. So
And
you
it
were
was
bought
big.
in.
I had this
Yeah.
big vision
Yeah.
and I was excited and I was, and it felt like, okay, it's gone. It's not going to happen.
Hey, guess what? You didn't guess, but the Dealer Lab has its very first official sponsor. It is Chester River Consulting. And actually, these guys are really close with us already. Chester River Consulting does direct marketing. They do mailers, they do direct email marketing. They have been a very pivotal partner in the turnaround story of Moto Julia, which is now the Dealer Lab. They were the ones who were able to execute all of those really pivotal life cycle interactions, those emails that went out that were personal, that were specific to a particular time in the customer's life cycle. And they actually scraped all of our data, pulled all the data out of our DMS. They then organized that information based on how long that customers had the vehicle, and they create meaningful engagements multiple times throughout the year. Now, when we looked at doing this ourselves in our store, as we were turning around, we were going to have basically our team contact a third of our entire customer base every single month. Now, that is so much additional work to put on the shoulders of the team that we had. The team was so small, we couldn't pull it off, but we knew how incredibly important it was to have meaningful engagements with customers. Now, you might be thinking a third of the customer base every month sounds like too much, but when you break it down, it really means you're engaging with customers once every 4 months or so, once a quarter. You've got a really meaningful touch that's about the helmet they need to replace now, or hey, it's cold now, you bought in the summer, your apparel might need to be different, or it's time for that service. Hey, here's a follow-up survey. All that kind of information that make sure the customer feels heard and thought about and engaged and relevant to our dealership. That was entirely executed by Chester River Consulting. If you want to check them out, you can go to fueledbycrc.com, or better yet, just email sales@fueledbycrc.com. They were so pivotal in the success of the Dealer Lab and the continued success of the Dealer Lab. We're really excited to be partnered with them, and we're very thankful that they're sponsoring this show.
Excited and I was, and it felt like, okay, it's gone. It's not going to happen. And I'm driving home one day in the real estate headspace. I'm looking at this, looking at that. And I was mostly in residential, but I had looked at some commercial stuff personally when I was thinking about this dealer opportunity. Okay, could I move it? Could I pare it down? Could I, I was just kind of in this headspace and I toured a couple commercial properties. Well, I see this cool spot as I'm driving home one day and I go, I should look at that. And I thought, just, it's done. Close the door, move on.
Yeah.
So I drove past it and I got about a block away and I thought, I need to go look at that. I need to call him. The space was cool. I just need to see. Call him up. He says, yeah, come take a look the next day. And the next day I went and took a look through the space and it's the space that I'm in now. I walked in, big open slab of concrete, floor to ceiling windows looking out over downtown Seattle, looking out over, Lake Union. It's a very quintessential Seattle view and building. And this is at a time when I was really down on Seattle, again, always trying to run away to California and the sunshine and I thought, man, if I'm going to be in Seattle, I want to make Seattle what's missing for me, the community and the culture that's changed and all these different things. And I thought, okay, well, could I do something with this? Didn't know what rent was. Didn't know. I knew the space looked cool. And the landlord was so cool. He had left me with keys for a couple of weeks. And he said, sit with the space, see if you could do something with it, see how it feels, get back to me.
Yeah.
And over the course of a couple of weeks, we started talking and okay, what's this look like? What's that? Could I knock down this wall? Could you cool with bikes in there? And, I talked with him through my vision, which was a really pared down version of the business plan for this dealer that I was trying to acquire. And I said, okay, this is kind of what my plan is. This is kind of my thought. And, eventually he was just like, okay, well, when are you moving in? When are you signing the lease?
You assumptive close there.
Right. And I had sold one last house and I took the money from that and I bought a bunch of not great motorcycles and scooters. I went to town. I started getting my business license. I had this clear vision of building this thing out that was going to have all the facets. It was going to have helmets for sales and bike service happening and bikes for sale. And, it was not concrete what it was going to look like exactly, but it was important to me that it had all the aspects and that it was a fun community spot because so many of these have come and gone, especially with COVID and a lot of the
Yeah.
other changes that were happening in the world. And so, I thought, okay, small, simple bike shop, all the ingredients that I know and love. And it was this door open for me to do all those things and ingredients that I like again. And
Hmm.
fast forward 6 months later, and here we are. And I've got a shop that's got all the aspects, and I'm right on the cusp of hiring my first employee.
Okay. So we talked at AIM, and
Yeah.
you were talking about how I mean, the discussion was you have made something incredibly cool to watch you on social media. What's your social media, your Instagram handle?
Studio Moto C, SEA.
Studio Moto C. Okay. So we're like, I've been following it, checking out what you're doing, like watching this grow. And it is, I mean, your presence on there is like, it just bleeds through. Like clearly you're building something that's cool. It's so cool to think of it as not a dealership, which it is all the pieces of a dealership. But it's like not a dealership. It's just like a community hub that does all the stuff that the customer needs. Like it's so cool. And at AIM, we're talking about like, well, how the hell do you scale this? Like, how do you take what you did? And you are obviously that idea of like volume of culture, like you exude it just constantly. And now you've put it into this little container and it is just like so pressurized and just shooting out everywhere. God, I'm really the visuals I'm creating here. Although I got to change this analogy.
You talked about pressure
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
a bit in
There's
this
a lot of
podcast. Are you okay? Like, is your container
yeah.
doing okay? And he's like, and then sometimes it gets so small
That is
that your
exactly right.
head
You can tell
just
there's a lot going on in my
explodes.
head right now. So, do you feel
Yeah.
do you
Does
feel
anybody feel
everything
like the
crushing
walls? The
in?
walls are
Yeah.
closing in a
How
little
fun
bit.
is it to pay a mortgage for you right now? So,
Crushing pressure. Yeah, yeah. You've built the crushing, horrible, crippling
so
pressure of culture.
yes, I mean that is true. You built that thing around like you, and now you're going to bring on somebody else. How do you make sure? Well, I guess the even harder thing is not only how do you make sure that that person you're bringing in continues that culture. Maybe that her first hire is incredibly important, and I think you're well aware of like the culture is going to be dictated by the first hire you have, not even necessarily the energy that you bring to it. But how do you even pick the role? I mean, you are literally doing everything right now. You're selling, you're titling, you're doing service work, you're service writing. You're just a one man show, which is so freeing and exciting. But then you've got the anxiety of paying for somebody else and then saying, okay, good luck being the person that also does everything, but half as good as me. So, so what are you,
Uh,
what are you going to
I,
do?
well, so I think the container pressure is a really good it's a really good metaphor for what's going on because I want to keep the container small. I mean, I like the physical size, 3,000 square feet of what I'm doing, and I look to like what Brian at the Moto Exchange has done with Rockridge Two Wheels as an example of doing something really big and awesome out of a really small footprint. And I
Yeah.
think that physically keeping the space small also keeps the pressure up. I think
Yeah.
the physical space isn't the container, right? I think it's the energy that we're talking about, the energy of the but I think having a small space also forces that also. So I looked to that as an example. But I don't ever want to work myself out of my job or position. I know that that's what a lot of owners want to do is that they want
Yeah.
to be able to scale their way out of what they're doing. I think I'm unique in the sense that I like all the stuff. I really
Hmm.
do. I like the complexity and the monotony and the excitement. I like all of it. To me, that's all the sides of the thing. So hiring somebody that's going to do what I'm doing half as good as me was not an option for me. And so finding somebody that does what I do okay really well was key. And so for
Okay.
me, I'm looking at a technician. I'm looking at a technician
Yeah.
though that wants to be outside of the norm of a traditional tech role because there's a lot of techs that well, there's not a lot of text. That's a problem right there, actually. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of text, but the text that there are, some of them aren't motivated in exactly the same way. Some of them are, if you're a flat rate tech and you're driven and motivated, you can make some good coin in this industry.
Yeah.
And, I wanted somebody that wants to be able to earn a good living, but also wants to be a part of the culture side of it and is curious about the business side of it. And that's not an easy person to come by. And so it's been a difficult task looking for that person. I mean, I don't know that I'm dialed there yet, but to me, it's find a that is well, I don't consider myself a tech. I'm handy and I can
Mhm.
get through basic maintenance and I'm decently competent, but I don't consider myself a tech. I think that there's a lot
Yeah.
of artistry in being a technician. And so finding somebody that sort of exudes that creativity and that passion, that's key to me. And so um, again, I don't really want to work myself out of the tasks, but I need to free myself up. And so a tech is number one, but something we talked about at AIM Expo, and two of the things, I'll say three things that are really curious to me. Again, kind of like poking my head, like, okay, what are the ways that I can get ahead with these? The three things that I'm the most kind of curious about how they all fit, though I'm not there yet with them. Number one, I'll say what you have going on, what you and Justin are doing is absolutely on the radar of, okay, how does this fit with what I'm doing so that I
Yeah.
can lean on these resources as
Mhm.
one person and amplify what I'm doing. Because
Yeah.
again, I don't want to work myself out of them, but I want to not have to put all the energy. Okay, how do I solve this problem? I can tap on some of the best minds in the industry, you guys, Danny, and the resources that you have, and say, okay, how do I solve this? Okay, so that's something that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
The other one, what Moto Hunt has going on is awesome.
Yeah.
Again,
Agreed.
as a one man band at the volume I'm doing right this moment, it just doesn't make sense for me. It's not expensive, but if everything's only a couple $100, all of a sudden your budget gets tapped quick. And so as soon as
Yep.
I can afford to get into Moto Hunt again, I think the tools that are available there for valuation, for comps, for selling, for there's so much more than that contained in it, but I think that's a really big resource.
Completely
And
agree.
then the last thing that I'd kind of been considering trying to figure out, okay, how do I outsource some of the monotony so I have more time. The problem with being a small shop that, dare I say, I think is cool, and some other people have found to be, is that you get people coming in all day long. All the hours in my day are filled talking with people. People are through
Yeah.
constant, and it's not a negative, but there are only so many hours in the day, and so to be able to effectively and efficiently get bikes listed and pumped out there and do those things that need to get done, I started thinking, okay, do I need to hire a virtual assistant? And I've got a Google Drive of all my photos and the bike listing that I've got and some hours are attributed to a virtual assistant that could help list inventory for me, that could help just do the things that are basic going through the motions, not customer interacting, not any of the creative stuff that I enjoy doing. Well, as I'm going through this thought process, uh, I landed AIM. And one of the things at AIM was Echo. And
Oh,
Echo has
nice.
this ability to take your inventory, map it onto a page that could be listed on your website that people can just click, buy, finance. They do a big chunk of the paperwork, and it's a really cool concept. Now, I don't know if it has a place with what I'm doing right now, namely because a lot of what I do is in the moment. And this is one of the hurdles that I'm navigating is like, yes, schedule customers, act accordingly. But if somebody walks in off the street and wants to buy a bike in that moment, and I've already got a customer that I'm working with, I'm not going to tell them no.
Mhm.
Grant, Echo and some of these other resources don't have the opportunity to, in the moment, prep the paperwork, get the deal done so that all I got to do is meet with the customer and crank them through. So I'm trying to find solutions right now in a little out of the box way for juggling multiple customers, taking some of the tasks off. Unfortunately, some of the
Mm.
things that I do enjoy doing, but so that I can actually spend time and move people through.
Man, I love that. And so much of when Danny and I started dreaming up this idea of like, okay, what is it that can create the life cycle version, like the best version of what it used to be? And we talk a lot about like the concept of cradle to grave for salespeople. We talk about I love the idea of when I buy a motorcycle from a sales guy, I've become friends with that sales guy. That's the whole point, right? Is like building trust, getting to know him.
Big time.
Wouldn't it be awesome if that was the same guy that I went to when I needed service work? Because I've already built that relationship and that trust. And ultimately, that's my guy. Like that's my motorcycle dude that like builds the community. And to take that model and force it into an existing dealer model is really, really tough. But you're doing it. And so our whole vision, like our kind of pie in the sky idea is, man, wouldn't it be cool if dealerships went back to what dealerships were like 40 years ago? And by that I don't mean like that every like all the advancements go away and we have shittier motorcycles, but like what if it was not these huge big boxes of giant operations? And I'm not those don't go away forever, but like, man, what if you could just focus on creating this one intense, incredible experience? But you, unfortunately, the only way to do it is to have a unicorn like you know, like you need somebody who loves being a service advisor, which is tough enough to find, loves doing title paperwork. That's insane. Like loves talking to customers and taking up all your time, loves creating content on social media. That is like such a hard person to find, but maybe it's not that hard to find the passion and the excitement. It's just hard to take that passion and excitement and shove it into the mold of what a dealership is and all the complications of having to do it in this exact same way so that you like you just like pound the love and joy out of being in a store. So I love the idea that like maybe you take the passion, like the passion you have for this, and then you offload the responsibilities, you simplify the process, you streamline the things. And I agree, man. You're mentioning the exact names that like are currently inspiring me in the industry. Echo is inspiring me. Moto Hunt is inspiring me. Like the people who are taking the monotonous pain in the ass stuff. Chester River Consulting is inspiring me because like I want to contact all my customers all the time with all the fun stuff we're doing, and not just through social media, but like by direct, personalized feeling messages. I can't do it as one person. Daniel, you can't do it as one person. But how do you make sure people still feel loved and appreciated often, like in things that are specific to them? And so like I think what you're doing is not just something really cool that you are going to build and enjoy and be a part of. I think that there's something to what you're building that is kind of like defining the what could be the secret sauce of building little community hubs for motorcyclists, which get us back to heydays of when we were not only selling more motorcycles, but like motorcycles are it's easier to make that part of somebody's identity, you know?
Yeah, well, and go ahead.
Have you guys? No, I was just gonna say, have you guys thought about that? Back in the day, we had a lot more salespeople per bike sale, right? So like you have a dealer that's a 500 unit dealer, and it had twice as many salespeople as it does today. And I think that a good representation of how technology can positively affect culture, which normally technology doesn't positively affects culture, but if you use it the right way, five salespeople back then had a tight knit group of what, 25, 30 really good customers that they did a really good job taking care of. And those are your high value customers. And because of the way that the costs have changed and the way that the margins are, well, haven't necessarily, or have maybe not in the best way. You end up with this having to cut costs. Personnel is the first person, and then you try to replace that person with technology, and you lose culture. But if you look back as to why there were so many of them, is because those customers actually needed that experience. You needed to
Yep.
give 30 customers a personalized singular guy experience to continue having high value customers come through the door. So you had a bunch of them. And I remember the whole turn and burn conversation was get the high school kids in to sell all their friends and family and then burn them out. But that it never involved getting rid of the core guys, because the core guys had your real valuable customers stayed with your core guys. If you think about that, well, one, the turn and burn thing is terrible, but we are still operating off the same number of customers and the same number of sales. We're just trying to do it with fewer employees, but we haven't given them a concept or a tool system to maintain that same level of
Yeah. And
engagement. And so the
when you
culture
say
all slipped
tool
away.
system, I want to make
And I
sure that
think that
like I don't
it's
think
it's
that
just
I don't think that that it's just a tool that's going to make this enjoyable again. I think I think if we make it and this is going to sound ridiculous, but make it suck less to do the job so that people stay in the job and stay excited.
yeah,
So I
no,
mean, you're right, that is a tool set, but it's like take the titling off the plate or take the
but
thing. Yeah.
also experiential. Dude, when we were in our heyday, like when we were selling all the bikes, right? Like I mean, there's been a couple in the industry, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about like the mid 2000s, right? We were like doing pretty good, right? We weren't using a CRM. I mean, we had one, but it wasn't great. It was a calendar scheduler, remind you to call the person you put in, no connection to DMS. Most of the really good old school sales guys
Yep.
are running notepads, right? And so the CRM wasn't about giving your customers better experience. It didn't end up doing that. What it was is so you could manage more customers with fewer people, and because that was a necessity at the time. And I'm not saying
Yep.
get rid of your CRM. CRM works. It works better than a notepad, but the experience was tied to the notepad. And here's what I'm saying is that a good salesperson would write your name in a notepad, and I'm not saying good as in universally good. I'm saying considered good at the time, would write all the names in a notepad. He wouldn't call all of them. He would call the ones he thought were going to buy. Well, then they did buy, but then he would build a genuine relationship with that person. And people would walk in the front door and their kids would walk in the front door. Gary Merrill, Faye Myers, right? You'd be standing there and a 20-year-old kid would walk in. He doesn't know Gary Merrill. He's never met him before. And he'd be like, I'm here for 4 quads. My grandfather told me to go talk to Gary. And the sales guys would be like, oh, he's in the corner. And that dude would sit at his desk with his feet up. And it wasn't because he was a better salesperson.
Yeah.
It was because he had built really meaningful relationships off of a notepad. How do you replicate that experience for your customer, because it's important, it's what sells motorcycles, and do it with fewer people at a scale where we can keep the doors open? And here's where the two conversations meet, right? Is that you can't get rid of the show. You just can't get rid of the experience. It doesn't make sense. We're not selling washing machines. We're selling something that is dangerous and passion based, right? So you can't get rid of the show. You can't replace all your staff with technology, but the truth is we can't afford big staffs like we had in the early 2000s. And so the conversation, the reason that we're getting excited about things like Echo and things like Moto Hunt and Chester River is I think our perspective has changed on the use of technology. And I think that's the important part, is that like I think if you haven't made this like Onyx level shift as a dealer, you're still looking at things like Go and somehow thinking in the back of your mind that they're going to fire everybody, replace the experience, and turn it into a kiosk where you can just have the bike shipped to your house via the OEM. And so they're scared and they don't like it. But the truth is that they haven't actually admitted to themselves that what they've done is eliminate their experience through slimming of their staff and bad customer contact or AI use for
Yeah.
just repetitive responses because it's a numbers game. And they haven't thought, how do I get my smaller staff to be Daniel level engaged, right? And produce higher sales without sliding experience down. And the way you do
Yeah.
that is by utilizing technology in the right way. right?
I,
It's the only
I
way we can
wouldn't
do it,
have
or hire a bunch of
thought
people back and give
of
them notepads, but
so
we
so I
can't
wouldn't
afford
have looked at Echo as a useful tool had I not been thinking of a virtual assistant as a useful tool. And I wouldn't have been thinking of a virtual assistant as a useful tool had I not had my eyes opened to technology and doing things at a larger scale in a different way
Yeah.
after meeting with the two of you. When I first met the two of you, both of you think in a yes numbers oriented way, but also at a scale oriented way because scaling puts systems in place, systems take load off and make things easier. And you know, I apply a lot of that logic to what I do, and I have to because it's just me. Like, okay, how can I figure out how to do all the things that need to get done in a day? I'm not anti-tech in any way, shape, or form, but I'm anti-tech in key places, right? I don't use any AI to write any of the copy on any of my anything because to me
Hmm.
that's so important that I do it. I love doing it, and you can immediately tell if a person wrote something versus AI wrote
Yeah.
something. And to
100%.
me there's those key things that have to remain organic. But you know, who's doing the paperwork and who's processing it and who that doesn't have to be a person in the physical dealership. Can somebody remotely help take the copy that I've written and post on Cycle Trader, post on
Yeah.
MotoHut, post on Marketplace, on Craigslist, and so on and so forth? And here's the bucket of photos, here's the copy, put it out into the
Hmm.
world. And again, I wouldn't have thought that way had it not been for, again, how are you guys doing things and how are you helping people do it at a really huge level? Well, how you do it at a really huge level makes me be able to do it at a really small level.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
appreciate that you mentioned we helped inspire you on that. I mean, I think I'm flattered, but I'm also like, I think Justin and I both we have ideas on how things should be. We have ideas on how things have been done, and I think one thing that's fun about what we're doing right now, and honestly, what's fun about this moment, I feel like in the industry, is that shit is being shaken up, like dramatically shaken right now. And what's important is not to just hunker down with, okay, well, it's going to be exactly this way. I think what's important is to recognize that like everybody's in the middle of this shakeup right now. Stores are closing, people are doing creative stuff, and like just be a student of it at the moment and say, okay, well, I think it's going to fall this way. I mean, actually, we brought this up at AIM, right? There was all these dealer groups. Motos America is one. I'm not going to list them all because that'll make it sound really sad. But these dealer groups who have exploded, like, and they're not exploded in the good way. Like they were in a good way exploding during COVID. They had this cash. They were buying up stores. They were just like, oh, cool. I'm going to go from my one dealership to now five dealerships because I know what I'm doing. And you're like, oh man, that is okay. Well, when it slows down, what are you going to do? And it slowed down, and they have run out of cash, and groups are shutting down and closing stores and not paying their staff. Like stuff's crazy stuff is happening. But what's interesting is those explosions create a lot of shrapnel, a lot of stuff flying off of that right now. And it's interesting to see like, oh, that means that there are primary market areas that are open again, or there are really talented players like yourself, Daniel, like really talented people who had been gobbled up in these groups that now have even more experience and more ideas and more connections and can actually do a thing that is creatively different than what we've done before. It is a fascinating time to be like studying and paying attention to what's happening. Moto Hunt is one of those as well. It's a story of like a group that grew and like couldn't support this thing anymore, and then suddenly like that spins off, and so like these spin-off things are just happening all around us right now. So it's a fun time to be in this.
It's a super fun time to be in this. I mean, that brings us
Yeah.
full circle back to the start of this for me, which is like I'm having the most fun in this industry and personally that I've ever had. I mean, it's a great time to be really creative. There's a ton of resources, and above all, the resources are making it possible for me to do more with less, which means making more connections and genuinely making more friends. The thing that's so fun to me about having my shop the way that it is right now is I have friends coming through all day long, and they're new
Yeah.
friends, and they're people that I meet that become friends. And the beauty of owning my own business is I get to do business with who I want. I get to take care of my people, and I get to set a culture and a tone, and it attracts more like-minded people. And so all day long, when I don't get to the paperwork and I'm too busy for this, that, or the other, it's because I've got friends coming through all day. And I think the same is true on the industry side of things, right? Between you guys and the friendships we've got and the other connections, I just think that there's this big boom in technology and doing things a little bit differently, but I don't think it's unique to this time, but I think it's unique to our time is that we're all connected with some really great friends of all of ours in the industry, and everybody's going a little bit different direction, but everybody can really help each other. And it's really fun that we can support each other and ourselves like that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And maybe that's the interesting part about it too. It's like the way you solve your problem isn't necessarily doesn't need to be the way that everybody else solves their problem as well. It's maybe the cookie cutter thing isn't right. Maybe it is like how do you help and this is literally like spitballing as we say it right now. How do you help stores be an authentic version of themselves? Like help that culture be an authentic version of itself by encouraging that component, but also saying, oh, cool. Well, there is this like one piece you can offload, and you can offload it in this way so that you can put more energy into keeping the pressure of that container high, you know? I think that maybe that is it because, you know, I think about like OEMs, you know, brands and this, we talked about this previously too. This is not necessarily a problem, but it definitely is. It's a weird feeling. Back in the day, a decade ago, more than a decade ago, when we had a lot more say in our showroom design and how we operated and what happened. It meant that the culture that was in my store was my culture, and I happened to sell brands through that culture. And then OEMs, as you grow, right, as the container gets bigger and more people come in and more brands, more dealerships have your brand, then OEMs go, oh, but you have to design your showroom to look exactly like this. It has to do this way. You have to do these things. And so you kind of, they're forcing this container around your culture that doesn't actually fit your culture. And so then it loses its reason of being. And not to say that the answer is throw out the standard, you know, displays and all that stuff. Maybe it's just saying, how do more people do what Daniel's doing, and the display walls and the imagery and the stuff that comes along with the brand. Maybe that adds to what your version of your store is. But we have to get back to like, how do you help how do you help a brand understand that they have to cultivate a culture amongst the operators of their brand, like the operators of their stores, to be able to like show the authentic version of themselves.
Well, a perfect example of that is Ducati. Ducati rider. I've had multiple. I got my start in the industry at a really cool Ducati shop, and at the time, it didn't look or feel like any Ducati shop that
Yeah.
I'd ever heard of or seen, and the feel was uniquely Monroe Motors, but the Ducatis were put in a proper light and they were still held with high regard. And there was this integration of the Ducati architecture and the display and the way that they wanted it promoted, but it wasn't so overbearingly Ducati, which, not to pick
Yeah.
on them, it's the same for all the OEMs, is stale. Why would I go to Ducati of blank versus Ducati of blank when they look and feel the same, which is to say they don't really feel like anything. There's no
Yeah.
nothing grabs at me. But when you walk into something like Monroe Motors or Scuderia or what I'm trying to build with Studio Moto, I want it to evoke something. And it's going to be different walking into Scuderia versus Studio Moto, and it's going to be different walking in either of those to Erico or to, you know, you name it. Like pick a cool shop. they're
Yeah.
fucking cool, they're doing great business, but it tugs at you in a way. And
Yeah.
you can't take that away. And that's what the OEMs right now are inadvertently doing. I don't think that
Yeah.
they mean to do this because they need to set a standard because there are going to be operators that won't toe the line, and that's a problem too. But but it can't just be so ominously uniform
Mhm.
because why go to a dealer then if that's what you're going to experience?
I was talking to John about exactly this. We're in downtown New Orleans. So when people visit New Orleans, if you're into motorcycles, like there's no reason to not just pass by the shop and check it out. We have a beautiful showroom. It's really nice. It's a pretty space, right? But
Gorgeous.
the amount of people who walk through our showroom who are from out of town is crazy. Like every day, there's somebody from like, oh, I'm from Germany, I'm from this place, like all the time. And I was talking to John about it, like, what is it about visiting this store that isn't just about they're coming into my store, into this dealership to not just see a shop, see a store of these products. They're coming in so that when they go back home, they have a story about the dealership that they visited and how cool it was and the experience it created and the vibe that it created. The Erico Motorsports wall of motorcycles, like that's a story that everybody talks about when they go visit Erico in Denver. Like, what is it that we have right now, other than being a very pretty store, but like, what is it that you go visit the dealership in New Orleans because the experience is really cool? So, how do we build stories, not stores? Which, like, I think if we start looking at our operations in that way and say, like, would somebody tell a story about visiting my dealership, or would they just be like, I went to a place that sells stuff and they tried to shove stuff down my throat, or nobody talked to me, or like if that's all people remember of the dealership experience and they don't go like, holy man, the experience was wild. Like, sure, the motorcycles are cool, but like everything about it was just the right vibe. And so, like, Daniel, you're clearly building that. That's I that's at least the niche of our industry that I think we want to grow and be a part of as well.
I couldn't agree more. I don't, I wanted to build the shop that I wanted to go to work in every day. And
Yeah.
it's 100% that thing of like, if you enjoy what you're doing, you don't work a day. And it feels like that. I mean, it felt like that from the beginning of building this thing, which crazy was just only last June. But I was talking to a friend last night, and I was showing them something on my Instagram, and they go, "I can't believe that you have this thing that you started last year." And it kind of hit me again, and I'm like, "Yeah, I can't believe it either," because it again, it has all the facets, which was so important to me that it's yes, to really I don't think I'm gonna feel like it's legitimate until I have a tech wrenching and I'm selling and somebody walks in to buy a helmet and they have a great experience and the music is playing and all the stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
the orchestra of the thing has to be all at once for me to feel like I made it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the the foundation is there, the pieces are there. And
Yeah.
so, again, for me, it was like, I want all of it so that I enjoy what I'm doing every day. And if I enjoy it, I'm gonna bet that somebody else is gonna like what this is too. And
Yeah.
I made some decisions that aren't for everybody, right? Like it was decisive for me to put it in the location with the interior design that I did, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's a little goofy and bougie for a motorcycle shop. The dumb candles that I have and the wood backdrops and the couple of plants and these things, they're not to everybody's taste. And when I worked with my buddy Xerxes on the logo and the color palette, it was important to me to have a cool, simple logo, but also some bold colors and branding. And one of the colors I threw in there was this soft pink. That doesn't scream motorsports to just about anybody, I don't think. And
Yeah.
it has become the primary logo and the color that I've used most often. Um, one, because I like it, but two, because it is in such stark contrast to the majority of what people see and think of power sports and motorcycles. And, it was sort of this thing like, I'm gonna bet that somebody else is gonna like it because I like it. But also, if they don't, I don't really care because I want to do what makes me happy and I enjoy. And that's the bottom line of what this whole thing has been. It's sort of this full cycle of uh, what do I like? Okay, it's a little bit different. That might get some traction. Maybe people don't like it. Okay, I don't care. I'm just going to do what I like. And it's just
Yeah.
this
Yeah. Yeah.
cycle. And it's, fortunately it's been paying off. But I think that to go back to the brand identity of OEMs and these stores and all this thing is like I think people need to put themselves out there a little bit more, and operators all the way down to salespeople need to do what they think is the right thing. And I think either the market's going to tell you it's not the right thing, or hopefully you're doing the right thing because you're caring and you're putting a little flavor into it.
Yeah, I agree. I think remembering that everything is characters in a story. Your character in the customer story, their character in your story. I mean, you talk to customers all day long in sales. It's horrible until you start learning that they're all weirdos and they all have weird things to say. And motorcycles, right? All the motorcycles are the same until you realize that they're all characters. They all have different personas. And that's why you can own more than one because they do different things, right? Locations are characters. And I think if you think that way, the experience is easier to come across. I will say this, just for you as a friend, you'll never be done. You still haven't had a party, right? You still have an orchestral hit. Bro, listen, you're still gonna have an orchestral hit, and you're gonna be like, we're gonna need more triangle. Okay. So just remember that you're gonna you're you got to be okay with not being done too, because like your complexity to your store and your story, it'll always feel brand new when something changes, and that's cool, right? Make t-shirts, sell them. People want them, right? Don't be afraid to spend the money on the t-shirts. You'll sell every single one of them right now. Like you can do it today. You'll only be out the money for like a month, right? And then you'll recoup all of it plus the profit. It's on my list. It's on my list. To be fair, yeah, to be fair, more people want Studio
Not
Moto
true.
t-shirts
I'm
right now
ordering
than
a
they want
Scud
Scuderia
shirt.
t-shirts, but I'm getting, like, yeah, but yeah.
Dude, this was a great, very fun conversation. I was hoping we'd have time to get to the Porsche story, but it's already going too long, and I'm desperately have to use the restroom. But this has been real fun. I definitely want to continue to have you on the show because I think I want to know what's working. Did you bring on that tech? What are you doing next? Like ideas. I'd love to spitball ideas on how you enter. Like if you're starting a whole new way of dealing with technicians, what would it look like? And little side note, just a thing to plant in your head if you're going to think of anything. We had a meeting here in New Orleans, I don't know, 3-4 years ago that kind of started Onyx. And we were talking about how does the dealership body, how do we change? And actually one concept, no idea if this is a good idea or not, but one concept became what if we ran service departments like a hair salon and you rented a chair or you rented essentially a lift to an independent contractor who is the technician. Granted, no idea if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but I know that that'll noodle around inside your brain for a little bit. And maybe I don't know, maybe there's something there. Maybe the guy who works in a shop and says, I could do it better on my own. You go, cool, I'll give you an air conditioned spot, a lift, air, all the things that are necessary. You build your brand along with our brand. So I don't know, maybe that's it. Maybe it's not, but either way, man, I really want to keep this conversation going, see the creative stuff you're doing, but thanks for coming.
Thank you guys for having me. I love riffing with you guys, and I love doing it in this format. I love seeing what you guys are doing. I mean, seeing the buildup of your thing over the last couple of years, and now seeing it implemented and people, you know, uh, actually benefiting from the tools and the knowledge is super cool. So I'm glad to be getting pulled into that. So thank you guys for having me.
Sweet, man. Awesome. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.